My name is Scott H. Silverman. My title is I'm the CEO of Confidential Recovery and the founder of Veterans Navigation Center, also a crisis coach, interventionist, and an author.
Can you tell me a little bit about your own mental health journey?
My own mental health journey is one of some ups and downs. I grew up in a traditional family. Things were they seemed okay. And then I kind of got into substance use disorder, using alcohol to kind of block. And I like to use the term anesthetize myself. And I got really good at it. And then it's kind of progressed as it does. And I wanted to find ways to not feel my feelings. And that kind of grew into a major nightmare. And I crashed and burned. Tried to take my own life back in '84. Got lucky. Had family support, got into treatment, and just celebrated 40 years of continuous sobriety. So that's the elevator pitch.
Congratulations with that.
Thank you.
So how did all that help you create your organizations?
Well, one of the things I learned early in my own personal experience in recovery is I can't keep it if I don't give it away. And I really didn't know what that meant. I was out of work for a while on disability, and I started volunteering at the shelter, and I was inspired by the commitment from the volunteers. And then after about 6 months, the head of the volunteers comes over to me and she says, most people come down here on a Sunday and they do their volunteer work for the year. We never see them again. But you've been here for 6 months. Can I ask why? I said, well, I like the food. We were serving almost 1,700 people on a Sunday. And I really enjoyed the work and watching people who couldn't provide for themselves with the gratitude that they had for what they were given. And then I started to realize, I'm seeing the same people every week. So I asked the head of volunteers, said, where do they go from here? What's the next steps? And they said, well, we feed them. The shelter that we're working in, they do all the other things. I said, what are the things? And I started doing some investigative work and found that that's what they did. They provided shelter and they provided food and gave them access to healthcare support as much as they could based on budget. So I thought, well, that's strange. There's a lot of people here that really they want to go back to work, or they want to go to work, or they don't know how. So I started coaching some of the men, and they were getting jobs. And then they came to me and said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm helping some of the clients get jobs. And they weren't my clients. They were other. I was just volunteering. And they said, well, we're getting some really good feedback. But the shelter is kind of frowning on it because that's not what we do. I said, what does that mean? I said, well, they feed and shelter. The job part's really up to the client. I said, well, look at the barriers they're experiencing. How can they possibly do this on their own? So I went and met with all the providers in our community, and I said, at San Diego here, I said, can I help with the job piece? They said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'd like to help people get jobs. And they go, well, we got you on the agenda, but we really can't do anything until 6 months from now when we have our annual meeting. I said, do me a favor, I'm going to step out. Take a few minutes and just ask yourselves, do you want this kind of help or don't you? 6 more months. How many people are going to expire in our community? How many people are going to go hungry and lose their housing? So they basically said, okay. So I came back and I said, so how are we doing? They said, well, we're not going to work with you. And I said, you don't even know me. I said, well, we're a little concerned. You ready for this? And I go, we're a little concerned that if you get our clients jobs, we might not have jobs. What? Yeah, it's in my first book. I documented it. I said, wait, what? Well, if you get our clients jobs, then the jobs that we have to provide their services, we won't have clients to serve. I said, how can that possibly be? There'll always be people that need help. Why not help the people that are willing to help themselves, give them the resources and the wraparound that they need for the continuum of care to get out of where they are if they're capable of doing it. Anyway, so that was a really bad day for me, and I came home and I had a real bad case of the efforts, and I talked to my wife and I said, I want to start a nonprofit. And she says, you have no idea how to do that. I said, well, the good news is I don't think I can make it worse. So I went to the library and learned how to raise money and study, and got my, advisory group together and started doing my own thing and created Second Chance. That was back in 93. And I wanted to be an exit program, which I was excited about because I didn't really want to provide meals. Housing was important because you can't get a job without an address, and you can't keep an address without a job. So I got a little 3-bedroom house down the street from this place I was working, and we rented it out as sober living. And so we got people in recovery, and I got referrals from people in the recovery community because I was in it. And they started going to work. And then from there, they started paying rent. And I thought, well, this is interesting. So over time, developed 9 scattered properties, 175 beds, and built a rather successful nonprofit helping people get out of the system that they were stuck in for a myriad of reasons. I mean, and clearly there's people that need different levels of help, but I wanted to go after the able-bodied because I think that I found that people who have become unhoused or lost a job or suffered catastrophic events, even though, and my specialty was people that were incarcerated, they have some great survival skills. So by helping them pivot and use some of those skills, their trajectory really moved quickly. And I got a lot of resentment from people in the social service world because I was actually helping people exit dependency and going into self-sufficiency with some wraparound services and support and being there to help triage if they fell or relapsed. And they did, and they do. But I think most people really, they don't want someone to help them fill out paperwork. They want tools to be self-sufficient. They want tools to have their own place. They want tools to raise their own family. And most of them know how to do it. They've either forgotten or got contaminated or, under the influence, or they had some mental health issues and, proper support, with clinical experts, maybe medication, maybe having a support system. And it worked. And that's what they wanted. So I gave them what they wanted. I grew up in a retail business where my job was to give the customer what they wanted. So I used what I knew, and it worked. I don't know if I answered your question or not there, but that's kind of my story about how I got in the nonprofit world, and also thought of myself as a social entrepreneur, not a social service worker. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a clinician. I'm a guy with just a lot of experience. And if I can help somebody else avoid falling down this mountain, because I put a light at the edge at night, so don't go past that light. I didn't build a fence. I just put a light on it. Shined a light on the path. And most people will take the path if they trust the person who's guiding them.
How does helping others help your own healing process?
Well, I don't know if I couldn't help others, I don't know if I ever could have healed. I think by giving it away, I get to keep it. And more importantly, and I go to almost 7 meetings a week still, virtually, my own recovery meetings. And some days I don't want to listen to it. Some days if I don't listen to it, I don't feel okay. So having the connection to others and being involved with recovery is everything to me. And now that I'm a crisis coach and interventionist, I get calls all the time for people that are in really bad shape. And I'm one of those guys, when I do television, I put my phone number out there. I say it out loud. And people call. And when I see a strange number in my phone, to me, it's an opportunity to, I want to say do God's work, but it's an opportunity to help someone maybe save a life. And that I don't know how I would go each day without that. So I really, when I have a day where I don't get a call, I kind of get upset that maybe someone's mad at me. So I love drinking from a fire hose. So I take my own calls, make referrals. I have a treatment center now, so now I have a platform, and I created that because I wanted to find a way to really help people. We're not benefits driven; we're helping people driven.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about the treatment center?
Yeah, we are an outpatient program. It's called Confidential Recovery here in San Diego. One of our biggest clients we serve are veterans, which is very exciting. Love doing that. I've worked with the hardest to serve, returning offenders, individuals on parole and probation. And then I shifted when I started Confidential Recovery, started working with first responders, which was funny. You'll love this, I hope. The first responders I were helping used to arrest my old clients. And now I was helping the people who were helping, used to help arrest the other group that I worked with. And then I met a guy who was retired, well, not retired, just left the Navy under controversial circumstances. And he was a Navy commander and veteran. And we talked a lot about it. So we shifted gears a little bit about 6 years ago. And I've never looked back. It's amazing. In San Diego, we have the third largest population of veterans per capita in the country. So it's been a real honor to help people who have served and their families. So then we created 3 years ago a nonprofit called Veterans Navigation Center. And the whole goal is to help people navigate. So that's always what I've kind of been as a navigator, helping people get to the highest and best level of care, knowing that I can't do everything and I don't want to because I'm not good at everything. But what I am good at is making connections. So we work closely with our VA here in San Diego. We work with the Veterans Coalition. Our outpatient program takes most insurance. We do a lot of self-pay, a lot of scholarships. And it's amazing to me some days, when you think about it, 15% of our community in the country has an addiction problem. But it's a disease of denial. And then, so people don't raise their hand and go, hey, I need help. You have to kind of make yourself present and be present and encourage people to ask for help. 3 of the hardest words, I think, in the English language.
Yes. And I've talked to a lot of veterans, and they talk about the challenges of coming back to civilian life. So how important is it to be, a shoulder to cry on, a good support system?
Well, I think knowing that there is support. And the thing that's interesting is I've learned so much about people's barriers to change and resistance to change, or just the ethos that, a lot of veterans have of, I was trained to help people, like law enforcement. I was trained to help people, first responders. And my job is to save others. They don't know how to ask for help. But when they see, and I think the most important piece is develop a relationship of trust. And sometimes it isn't a shoulder to cry on initially, but it becomes one. It's one of just sitting and listening and just say, what's up, brother, sister? If everything's going the way you want, there's nothing I can do to help you. But if there's something you'd like some support with, if I can help you, well, I don't trust you. I don't know who you are. I said, well, you don't have to marry me. We're just going to have a conversation, and I'm not moving in with you, and you don't have to move in with me. So let's keep it light. And just joking about it allows them to know that, maybe this guy does care. So when somebody calls our Veterans Navigation Center, the first thing we do is let them know that we're here to help them navigate, and that doesn't cost them anything. And it's amazing. The VA's got one of the largest budgets, second largest budgets, I believe, in the federal line item, almost $300 billion. And San Diego, half the veterans don't have, they don't have access to health care. And the benefit is there for them. So we're trying to make that connection. But, sometimes calling the VA, it's a big organization. You leave a message. You may not get a phone call back right away. And we encourage them, look, hang on. And then if they come in and we can do an assessment, we can relay them to the next handoff. So we can kind of help be that broker, if you will, or that mentor, or that big brother, or the navigator. So, and we stay with them. And, what we're finding is a lot of people graduate treatment, which we provide for the veterans, and then they join the Veterans Navigation Center, and we're there to support them long term. And now we're training them to be the frontline first responder, which is very exciting. So it's really cool to watch, somebody grow and then become a resource to those who are coming after them.
For me, I live with bipolar disorder too, and just hearing your story, I could see relatability and always want to help others. That's what I'm trying to do with this uh, video podcast thing. Do you see that people are more open to talk to other people with lived experience?
Yes, lived experience. And the thing is I can only go so far with lived experience. I mean, some people need a higher level of care. They need to have a real investigative analysis, and having an evaluation that comes from expertise, and that's important. But that's what the navigator does. We point them in the right direction, and then if they don't show up for their appointment, we ask them to check in, and we go, hey, well, I was uncomfortable, I was afraid, I didn't want to hear the truth. Okay, let's set another appointment. So rather than being punitive and go, you're off the list, let's be proactive and say, okay. Because one of the things I've learned in recovery is I'm also a retired unlicensed pharmacist. So you know what that is, right?
No, could you explain?
It's a drug dealer. So but I call myself an unlicensed pharmacist because most people don't know what it is, so it's a lot more complimentary. And so I get the whole spectrum of anesthetization, why people want or need or can't stop anesthetizing themselves. But I've also learned that when you remove the anesthesia, Michael, all the underlying stuff is there. And when it goes untreated, pressure busts pipes, people explode or implode. So we need to be sensitive to that. And how I think, reduce the stigma is this with you, is talk about it. That it's okay not to be okay, but it's also okay to be okay. And there's no reason why, if you're not okay, to evaluate. I mean, if we broke a leg, if we hit our head, if we, had an earache or needed a root canal, we know what to do. But when it comes to mental health, it's so opaque. And most of it's treatable. So, and as a previous homeless provider and an expert in the field of reducing homelessness, everybody wants to treat everyone the same. And we have to meet people where they're at, and thank you for sharing about, your personal, journey. And because a lot of people do suffer, and they suffer in silence, and they shouldn't have to. We're in a society today that, we have these resources out there, and you see most recently some of these catastrophic events. And what's interesting about the veteran, because, a lot of the data we see is just, summation or projection or anecdotal, but they call it facts. And according to the VA, 80% of the veterans who have taken their own life, and suicide's at an all-time high right now for veterans, have not sought help. Now, they know that because when a veteran, when an active duty transitions to being a veteran, they're in the system. So they can track this. So they know 80% have not sought help, or were unable to seek help, or sought help and couldn't stick with it, or didn't even know the benefit existed. So that screams to me, we have a systemic problem. So we're trying to really blow up the VNC, and we're a pilot program. We hope that the VA might pick up one day in the next couple of years and go, hey, we like this philosophy. It helps us help our customer, because the VA shouldn't just be a large budget agency that doesn't accomplish its goals. It should be able to accomplish its goals, and its goal shouldn't be to have 2,500 resources on a website that nobody accesses. So, but it takes that human part, that the handout, the hand up, to get the handout, to get the hand up, so people can move forward in their journey.
What is it like hearing positive things from the people you help?
That level of joy, I can't get that from my wife and kids. I'll give you an example. Just recently, we got a referral on this for an internship that we opened up at the Veterans Navigation Center. And it turns out that this woman who took the internship, her second day, reached out to me and says, "You may not remember me, but you taught me at Second Chance, almost 20 years ago, and helped me stay out of jail." And she's a veteran. And now she's working with us, helping other veterans. I mean, it doesn't get any better for me than that. I mean, I had a woman, I just say that because she had a female name, text me. He said, "I've had your number for 4 years. I think I'm ready for help." I've had your number for 4 years. I think I'm ready for help. And that just touches my heart. Now, I haven't heard from her in a week. I'm going to give her a couple more days, and then I'm going to reach out to her. But those stories, and since I've been doing this for so long, and I'm on local media whenever I can, I always get a phone call. I always get a text or a poke on social media saying, you helped me, you helped my family, you kept me out of prison. I didn't do any of that. They did the work. I just created a platform and a conduit. So to answer your question, it's what keeps me spiritually fit.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
I do this. I mean, I could do this all day long, because it helps. I think it helps others understand that guy's a whack job. I'm a whack job. I relate to that whack job. My life's kind of simple. I have 2 grown girls, both single. I only say that because if they see this, it'll be a friendly reminder. Maybe if they want to do something different, they can. At the end of the day, I keep it simple. I try to walk. I have 3 dogs. And my wife and I have been together 42 years. So it's been, it's been a good journey. And I didn't think I'd live past 30, and I just turned 70. So I'll be 71 in February.
What have you learned from your wife?
Well, when you're married this long, I get honest feedback from her, unsolicited or solicited. And she's my best friend, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to support me and her. And having that kind of partnership, my family had it, her family had it too. And I think it's kept. Well, she kept me alive. She helped save my life. So I'm eternally grateful for her support. And we have fun together. We laugh, we tease. I tease. She laughs, but I think we have a good time, and, our life's simple. She travels. She wanted to go on a safari a couple of years ago. I don't want to fly. And so she said, "Are you sure?" I go, "Absolutely." So she went with the girls and they had a great time. And to have that kind of understanding, and for her to be strong enough to go, "I really want to go," and for me to say, "You should." And, I was happy for her, and I got to eat my own favorite food every night for 2 weeks. So it's a good thing.
Where do you want to see your mission, say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I'm hoping that we can get the Veterans Navigation Center as a pilot accepted and picked up by the VA. It would be so much of a, kind of a final quarter for me in my back half of my life, to have the VA say, "You know what you've done here is important. What you're doing, we could really use the help with," and be invited in to help. We don't have to be part of their infrastructure. We could be a subcontractor, and then just help more people. And, the concept of the VNC can be translated to the homeless arena. I mean, everything I've learned over time, the lived experience, is how to move people from point A to point B and keep them at B to get to C, rather than to, cycle back. I call it the social service loop. Because if you look at the shelters, and if you really were to take a true inventory of who came in January, who was there in December, and then who was there in January again, we're serving a lot of the same people who have gotten dependent on the system. And we need to invite them and engage them in a way where they know it's okay to not have to be in the system. So I think that answers it.
How can people reach out to you and learn more?
Well, it's pretty easy. 619-993-2738, 619-993-2738. And I dare people to call me. I dare. If when this gets out and somebody calls me and says, "Oh, I heard you on can you really do those things?" And I said, "Well, what is it you want done?" And I'm going to put it back on them. I mean, it's their journey. And then they can go to my website, yourcrisiscoach.com, or you can just Google me, Scott H. Silverman. Google me, text me, email me, go on to social media. Let's talk. And if I can be a resource to you or your family, give me a call. I'm waiting for your call.